because we're super vulnerable as leaders in a remote situation. And if you don't embrace that, you're going to fail hard, right?
Add to that, you pretty much took the words out of my mouth. I was literally going to say servant leader. Things were going that way for a long time, right? And I guess I've got my own unique experiences, and maybe Nathan, you'll vibe with this as well. As a product manager, when you're a product manager, you basically need to influence and get everyone going in the right direction without actually having any control over them, right? So that term servant leader is thrown around in the product world and the whole Scrum software development world quite a lot, specifically for Scrum masters, tech leads, product managers, that sort of thing. And I feel like remote working is actually going to be or it is at least a very strong promoter of that way of doing things, right? It's an equalizer in a lot of ways. As you say, like being a remote founder, and I could say this hand on heart, right? Like I've had remote employees around the world. You are put in a little bit of a precarious situation, right? You need to put more trust in a remote worker than someone, arguably someone that's in an office. And what I was also going to say is the other word that was thrown around there was vulnerability. And I was, as I think I just said, I was just on another webinar, and I was a guest on it. And that was one of the things that I came back to a couple of times was the vulnerability that you need to show as a remote manager or founder or leader. Even just a simple example of, look, like if you have remote workers, there's a good chance they're going to be working from home, right? And if they're a brand new remote worker, what ends up happening is, I'm sure you have experienced it yourself, where the home stuff bleeds into the work stuff, right? Everything starts to get real blurry and real messy. When you're starting off and you realize, oh, whoa, this isn't just me sitting on the sofa all day working, and you start to realize, crap, my routines went out of the window, my health and well-beings went out of the window, I'm getting burnt out because I'm working at all crazy times of the day, either just because there's people in different time zones, or because expectations aren't clear, so I get guilty and the gremlins start talking in my head when I'm not working at 10 p.m. at night, all of these things. And the interesting thing is, as a manager or a founder or a leader of a remote company, you basically need to get stuck into that stuff, which is super personal, super vulnerable stuff. When you're talking to someone that's a new remote worker, or just new to your company, and they're like, hey, like I'm actually really struggling, I'm super lonely, like you know what, like my routine's not quite right. And you can't be, I guess, the more authoritarian business leader. You kind of need to get stuck into the gushy stuff.
Right now, you can arrange like coffee times, you can arrange lunch together, you can arrange initiatives together. I know a lot of remote workers who are doing that. Like, okay, we had Friday beer all together. How does this work? They just sit there, they sip their beer, coffee, tea, whatever it is, depending on the time zone, and they share something all together. They share not only what happened during their work week, but also something personal. They get to know each other. This is what we are doing here. So it's one way to build that kind of sense of belonging, because there you are really going to connect on a human level. You don't just connect on the level of skills and tasks and something that needs to be done, but you really connect on the level of, okay, guys, we are all on the same boat. We are all human with our weaknesses and our strengths. So let's share something here. You can even set up a topic. You can try to understand what the main struggle is, for instance, on a human level, and try to have a session where you can share all those things. So in a very controlled environment, in a very uh, unconditionally loving environment where there is no judgment involved. And then you have to be very careful. That's something that I would like to point out. So take notes if you can. Like it's very, very difficult for someone who is, ah, it's very delicate to say. Okay, let me say in this way. When you have a manager, okay, and you have the rest of the team, unfortunately, there is going to be a sort of power uh, power relationship, no? Something like someone gives orders and the other one executes the orders. In this way, when there is this kind of power game, people who need basically most support, they are going to be a little bit scared to show that vulnerability with someone who is on top, so to say, in the chain of power. Why? Because there is a risk that the boss can use this against them. Okay, I'm not saying that you are going to do that or that Tyler is going to do that. I'm not implying anything here, but I'm just saying that there is this kind of fear. It might be maybe not a fear that is based on practical things. It might be, but it's also true that maybe inside they have that fear. So it's kind of a gray zone, and it's very, very, very nice to do. It's an awesome experience to do to organize something all together. But then I think that the first step needs to be done by the manager, by whoever is on top of the chain of power, chain of command. And this, okay, in showing vulnerability, you give, so to say, power back to the whole team and say, okay, I am the manager, for instance, and I tell the whole team, listen, guys, I'm the first one to be vulnerable. I am the first one to show my vulnerability. I am the first one to be able to understand what being a human being means. So I'm going to give you the word in a second. In this way, we also go back to what Tyler was saying, no? Like this relationship and to be everyone on board, like in showing vulnerability. And if the first step comes from a manager, you are also saying that you are also communicating the rest of the team a very important thing. Like guys, we are all parts of the team. So we are going to level up that kind of power relationship. And you're going to say, listen, it's not that because I'm the manager, I'm, I'm more powerful than you. I'm the manager. I have different responsibilities. That's true. But I am part of the whole team here. So this goes hand in hand with understanding from the manager point of view to understand that there is no chain of command. Of course, at a certain point, there needs to be someone who takes responsibility to go to take some decisions, and we agree about it. But that's part of the responsibility. On the other hand, for instance, the developer. No, okay. So there is the project manager and the developer. The developer needs to understand, and whatever he does, is not doing it for the manager. He's doing it for the whole team. And if he is going to keep a nice, tidy log of, and is keeping the communication channels alive, he is doing that because he's making the job of the manager easier. Not because he wants to show off, but just because the manager is again part of the team. It's like, I don't know, if you play soccer or if you play volleyball, if you play soccer, you are the forward player, right? And he's most likely to score. This doesn't mean that he is most important player in the team. You also have the goalkeeper, completely opposite responsibilities, but still they need to work synergically in order to go farther. So if the perception is that the manager is the boss and is not the leader, and it's quite tricky. It can be very, very, very delicate. So I agree with you that it's something you can do a lot on a practical level, but it's also people need to understand that if they feel some resistance, if they feel some, how can I say here, if they are struggling in being aware of what's going on and in be really supportive for the rest of the team, then it means that they have to ask themselves certain questions. And sometimes those questions dig much deeper than what it can seem at first sight. That's what I wanted to add. Uh, so in order to reply, Tyler, what I would say is that it's amazing what you said. No, like people are not even willing to show the video every time. Then my question for those people would be, is it something practical or is something different? I mean, this can be just a sign that person doesn't really want to show vulnerability or just wants to keep up, for instance, a certain kind of image that that person has of himself or herself, and that's totally fine. That's what we always do. But then we should also be able to embrace flexibility, like to see that sometimes that image that we want to convey about ourselves is not fulfilled. And maybe someone else is looking at us and is saying something like, not what in this particular moment, you are not who I thought you were. Maybe my opinion about you changed a little bit. And we have to be able to deal with that. It's painful, so damn painful to see something like that because it's like a clash between our self-image and our public persona. So we would like to have them to be always going hand in hand, and sometimes they're like far apart from each other. And whenever there is this gap, we suffer. So whenever there is this gap and we suffer, we usually try to cover that suffering, that pain with some other tricks, like for instance, showing up a little bit late, fine, experiencing those resistances. And that resistance is a sign that something needs to be addressed. So nothing can be like overlooked because in time, what are you going to do? If someone is not going to show, to put the video on, to switch the video, then, and he or she doesn't give a good reason for that, like what Tyler did before, for instance, what's going to happen? That another person feels entitled to do exactly the same. And maybe more teammates are going to do exactly the same. And what are we going to do after a while? So in order to bring cohesion and really a closer teamwork, we have to embrace the opportunity to not only show vulnerability because we don't have to, like it's not a must. We have to be willing to when necessary. In order to be willing to, we have to be ready. But we are not ready by putting on, I don't know, a tie, a shirt, and something like that, and wearing pajamas underneath. But it's more of being in a state of mind that allows us to really be vulnerable, to embrace vulnerability. That's, for instance, my job. It's what I do with my clients. I really teach them and I train them in order to be vulnerable. Okay, I'm just reading from that is Tyler's boss that who doesn't want to do video. And that's even worse Sorry for the judgment, but it's something that is quite uh, quite peculiar. It's like uh, the boss. I mean, he should give an example. What kind of example is he communicating? So that person needs to understand that his behavior is creating an environment. So after a while, if that person can't bring other people on board, his business is going to sink, because who is going to be willing to work for a person who creates that kind of environment? When the work is remote and you have a lot of work, then um, all people are going to be focused on is about the environment, is about how nice it is to work with the other uh, members of the team, how nice the project, how stimulating the projects are, how uh, how the vibe is. So that's the point. Then no matter about I can give you the car, I can give you the company car. Who cares? There will be no need for the company car. Know what I'm saying? So the focus is going to shift from something very practical, from hard skills to soft skills, a lot of them. What Tyler said is amazing because it also gives me the opportunity to talk about something that is very strictly related, like being afraid of speaking up in a meeting. I don't know whether you experience that, but I have a lot of experience with it. Like people in a meeting just don't speak up. They're just silent. I don't know why. Some of them think that they can't really give a contribution. Some of them think that the contribution maybe is, I don't know, not good enough. And this has something to do with self-esteem, with self-image, as something that cannot be addressed only taking care of practical things, and something that needs to be addressed at a deeper level. So, in order to be the takeaway of this is that in order to be really fit to not only survive but thrive as a remote business in the near future and right now, is to understand that we have to evolve. We have to leave the hierarchical model behind and we to embrace sort of knights of the round table model. We are all on the same boat. We are all in the same team, and we are again. I'm going to give you the word next time, and we are going uh, uh, to really act as one. That's what I wanted to